Hey guys, we're here in our Sydney office with you, with me, filming our first ever Sydney podcast. I've got two really great hosts with me today, Tom Larter, Scott Howe. How you going, guys?
Good, thanks.
G'day, Jess.
I'm really excited to have a chat today. We've got some good topics to go over. All things mentorship, mental resilience. Both of you guys have some great stories to tell, so we'll get straight into it. Tom, Army background, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I was in the Australian Army for 13 years. I was an infantry officer. I left straight from school, wanted to serve the country, wanted a challenge and wanted to learn how to be a leader, and the Army seemed like an obvious choice for that. So I jumped straight in and I never looked back. I loved sort of every second of it. Deployed overseas, lots of training internationally around the world, and I had a really, really good time.
And was that always what your thought was sort of from school? Like, were you like, yep, Army's my thing, or was it just something that sort of popped up?
Yeah, it's funny. So I don't have any family lineage in the military at all, but I remember in maybe year 11, year 12, I had a couple of pretty strong male role models at the school I was at, and they sort of said, hey, you don't really know what you want to do, but you've always liked adventure, you've always been, played lots of sport, you've been team captains, you're a bit of a natural leader, maybe the military would be a good training ground for you and you might like it. And I started to look into it, and that's where it came from. Jumped straight in.
What about you, Scott?
So I was in the UK Commando Forces, and I joined because I was running away from home. So although my dad and his dad were both military guys, it was just me getting out of the way. Sort of a bit of a mentally abusive home, and I just couldn't handle that anymore. So I thought, well, let's do a bit of a delay tactic and go and put my hand up for something I was going to fail, and then kept passing everything. So 18 years later, I popped out the other end as an officer. So it was great fun. It was like Tom said, lots of adventure overseas. I think I deployed to somewhere in the region of about 50 countries. Which was fantastic.
I feel like the opportunities that sort of come for you guys, like I'm not defence background myself, but speaking to them every day, it's sort of that same situation. They join, they have no idea what they're in for, and then they come back with these amazing experiences and they get all these life skills that they never probably thought they would have got unless they were in the military. So I think a lot of guys can sort of relate to that sort of situation.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I don't think that's synonymous just to the military. I think a lot of people don't know what they want to do when they're young, right? So you got to pick something and sort of throw yourself at it. And, we just happened to choose the military and have a crack at that, and it turned out to be pretty good.
Well, the system's so flawed, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
At the age of 13, my kids had to decide what exams they were going to take, what subjects they were going to pick. What do they know? And then off the back of that, you take those exams and then you go, right, I now down select to another one. And you go, and it's happening so early. You know nothing about yourself. I've been an advocate for a while now of national service, not as it used to be. You don't have to go straight into the military, but military could be one arm. You could have local government, hospitals, education, whatever, to actually help out. And you have, 6 months in each of those sort of areas to learn a bit more about yourself and other people. Grow up and learn about yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you got to get into the workforce as fast as you can. Universities and long-term education, lifelong learning will always be there. But you can't. What you will learn jumping straight into something is far greater.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about more on you, Scott, purely for the fact that you are one of our mentors on our platform, and we do offer that program to all of our candidates, purely for the fact that a lot of people just don't know what the decision they're going to make is when they're transitioning. So to have someone that's been through that experience and sort of be able to gauge and talk to them about that is really important. So I just want to talk to you guys. Did you guys have somebody offering you support through your transition, or was it something you guys just tackled yourself?
So from my side, I think we had a three-day course that they gave us after 18 years of service. They gave us a 3-day course, including, I remember them getting us to cut up bits of paper and write something on it to make it look like a business card. And that was like one of the things they taught us is networking. Oh, geez. But no, I didn't have anyone. And I made it worse for myself because once I decided, right, that's it, I'm out, I left the nation. So 2 weeks after I retired, I was living in Melbourne. So I had no one. It was I was making up as I went along. About 5 weeks later, we moved up to Sydney. And there was a group of guys here, bootnecks in business, Royal Marine Commandos are called bootnecks, and it was just a gathering of like-minded souls. And I remember there a guy called Jim Lefevre, who's a senior guy in DXC. He said to me, "What industry do you want to be in?" I was Why do I have to pick an industry? Surely it's any of them. Leadership's agnostic. It doesn't matter.
I can do anything I put my mind to.
Whatever you want. So I found that really quite interesting that someone who had his experience, 20 years out, was saying to me I had to choose an industry. When I just thought, well, I believed at the time what I was going to do is work with anyone and show them how to lead. So I found that mentorship quite challenging. I think now looking back, I get where he was coming from, and my advice would be, maybe pick a sector and some sort of a ballpark industry that you're interested in, and get known in that arena, and you can expand when you're in there. You can start spreading your wings once you're in, but you need to get in.
Yeah.
So I think finding something, whatever that might be, whilst you're still trying to find yourself, because I think that was one thing for me, is that I had no idea what I was going to do when I left.
Yeah.
I was just making everything up. I just wanted to see what I could do, because my whole military career had been to disprove others, not about proving myself.
Just on that, sorry, a lot of guys are sort of in that mindset, and because they don't know what they're going to do, they just decide to stay in. It's not necessarily like a decision of, I'm definitely getting out and then I'll figure it out. Like, it's all like, I don't know what I want to do, but I haven't done any networking for it, so I'll just stay in. Were you ever like that, or was 100% you were out?
Well,
I'll figure it out.
I would like to say I was 100% out, but I decided. I remember actually where I decided and when I decided, and it was in February of 2003, just before we went into Iraq, and I was in a tent in Kuwait, just outside Kuwait City, and I just went, these two Muppets, Bush and Blair, are deciding the fate of whether I get to see my daughter again or not. And I just went, I think it's time for me to go. So I want to say, oh yeah, so I signed my papers and that was me. It was another 6 years before I left, because they kept handing me really cool jobs. I started working overseas. I was in Eastern Europe working with 26 nations of the former USSR, transitioning them from conscript to professional armies and militaries, so that they could fit some of the criteria to work or join the EU, UN and NATO. And that was fantastic. And then from there went into procurement, which I thought I was going to hate, but then it was this relationship with getting really good stuff, really good kit and equipment that we were woefully short of in the British military for all my mates who are now in command positions. Mm-hmm. So I did hang around a little bit, but once I actually wrote my letter, it was I had to do a year return of service, and then I was out.
Right. And what about you, Tom? Like, support wise, did you have a mentor? Did you speak to people? Was the decision already made for you?
Yeah. So the decision wasn't made at all, right? So if I frame it up, I'd been in for 12 years when I started thinking about it. I was working in a really good job in Melbourne. I was due for promotion. And as an infantry officer, I was about to go back and take a rifle company, which is sort of the next really good job that you're going to do. And I was relatively competitive in my cohort of classmates, and I was getting offered some really good jobs. It's funny that you brought that up, Scotty, because it's a good way of retaining people, right? They just keep giving you really good things. So I was getting offered all these things, and I had actually some really, really good support in the military. Some really senior officers that were like friends or mentors of mine that have been there for the years, and I'd go and talk to them about this. But what I started to find was they were very supportive of what I wanted to do, but they didn't have context about the civilian side of things. So they're very supportive of, hey, we can do whatever you like to help you stay. What do you need? Do you need some time off? Do you need, a holiday? This posting will be here if you want to take a year away. And very supportive from that perspective, and gave me some good advice from the military side. But then I was like, I didn't have any advice on the outside. So I had nothing to help me make the decision about, what I should do. And I remember finally making the decision to go and sort of make the jump. And I took a year leave without pay. But the decision I made was completely wrong. So I went, well, what are the things I really like doing? Well, so, I really like rock climbing and roping. I really like being in the outdoors. I really like small teamwork and being able to, have a good, solid, hard day's work. So I jumped out into an arborist company in Canberra and worked there for 3 months. But it wasn't until I spoke with the founder of this company, Tom, and he acted like that mentor, and I didn't know him in the military. So when I spoke to him and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I like doing, he's like, oh, I know who you are. You're not doing the right thing. You should be doing these things for these reasons. And laid it all out. And that was the first time someone who actually knew anything about industry had said something to me about where you'd fit. And then you start to join the dots.
And I remember talking to you about this previously, and you absolutely loved that job that you got when you came out, because it was everything that you wanted to do, right? Like, there was a good job for you, but you felt like there was more for you? You felt like you could move into something a little bit more challenging? Is that sort of
100%. Like that's, one day I'll go back and I'll have a farm and I'll enjoy chopping trees down or pruning trees. Like it was good fun. It was good stuff. But, and the guys that were there were great. Like it was good Australian, hard work every day. And it was actually kind of satisfying, particularly coming off the back of a pretty hectic, few years in the military. But then, you start to have conversations about what else is out there, how else you can contribute. And I started to realign my purpose because I really liked contributing in the military. And then I realized that I could contribute to Australia more on the outside. And I just needed someone to, as you say, mentor you and talk about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so you guys would agree that having a mentor sort of through that transition period is so important.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of the things that drew me to you guys. It was the first gathering of people, of like-minded souls who were going, actually, we're going to try and make sure that people can transition. I mean, I mentioned Bootnecks in Business. My understanding of that when I joined those guys was the same thing. We were going to offer some counsel and guidance and help people transition. But most of the people in it are still serving. So there's only a few people like myself that aren't. I'll go back to your point about when you left and you knew what you wanted. I felt that I did as well. But what I was doing is I was recreating the military. Well, if I'm recreating that, why don't I just stay? So I set up my own business straight away, which was doing leadership development and team building for corporates. And I had a subdivision of that, which was elite strength and conditioning coaching. And I ended up doing a few gigs for a few different corporates. And I sort of stood there going, what do I know about working in the corporate world? But yeah, I'm talking to C-suite execs here about how to lead their own company. So I thought, I better go and get a job. But then I did a team building day for the Swans and then ended up being a strength coach for them. And it was just recreating, being in the military. You're all round blokes. It's a brotherhood, hard work. And it was fantastic. But it wasn't actually utilising all the skills that I thought I could bring to bear in the civilian world.
Did it just seem like an easy transition for you because it sort of tied into what you were doing? I know it was a different crowd of people, but I know we spoke about, we met up for a coffee and we had a chat about it being your passion and now you do it for free because you realised that it was something you wanted to do on the side, not as your full-time role, but at the time, it was just an easy transition for you to move into something you were familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a hobby of mine. My mum got me doing Olympic lifting when I was 10 and, I've done it ever since. And so it's just a hobby. And when I started having to earn money doing it, I lost my hobby.
Yeah.
I lost that passion. I lost that, get out and clear my mind, that I always get from when I go to the gym. So, yeah, I learned quite quickly that, getting money for it wasn't the way ahead. I needed to do something else. And come back to the early point, I thought I could do the leadership stuff, and that's what I was trying to do. And then I just thought I was a pretender. Stood in front of all these corporates going, yeah, this is how you should run a business, blah, blah, blah. No, go and get a job. And then when I got, corporate roles, I was going, yeah, it was exactly like I thought it was going to be. So I've come full circle, as I said to you when we had coffee, I've come full circle. I'm now doing the stuff that I thought I was going to do as soon as I got to the country. And the reason it's taken that long, as I said to you, and we spoke about mental resilience and stuff like that, is that none of my experience and none of my qualifications were viewed as anything worthwhile by Australia. So all I was doing was proving myself for the entire time. It was only up until the middle of last year where, some people actually said, no, we need your help. And I had those people on a pedestal that I stopped having to do that. And everything's changed since then.
That's actually a good point. Obviously, for you, it was different. You came from a completely different country, but a lot of the guys get all these qualifications that they find irrelevant in the civvy world. So it's definitely a challenge, I think, that people need to overcome when they're transitioning is like, I've done all this experience, but it's not recognizable. So how would you guys, what advice would you give to sort of sell those skills that they've learned in the military?
Yeah, I don't know what you'd say, Tom, but I think for me, as I was mentioning, for my transition was the leadership thing. We've all got loads of leadership skills that are far greater, in my opinion, than anything that I've seen in the civil world so far, because it comes from a place of humility, comes from a place of really high EQ, where you metaphorically have your arm around the person next to you to help them out, genuinely help them out. And in the corporate Australia that I've seen, there's not a great deal of that. It's dog eat dog. It's a different game played by different rules, and I think that what I would suggest to people leaving is just be really aware of that. Be cognizant that you're no longer playing that game by those rules. there's lots of things that you've learned from the military that, you can use them in Civvy Street, but they're playing a different game.
Yep.
And if you think you can play by your old rules and your old standards and everything else, you're going to come unstuck. That is it. You will come unstuck, not them. You can't change the machine.
How do you feel about that, Tom?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Like, it's a different world, but you've faced those problems before as a veteran. It's just like you're going on a new training or deployment overseas. It's a new battle space or region that you've got to go into. Corporate is the same thing. You just got to take some time to figure it out. Interestingly, though, I'll tie these 2 points together, right? So we always have people coming to us asking about transferability of skills. I have my classmates that are still serving who text me on LinkedIn and say, hey, where can I get good RPL? And you're asking the wrong question, right? Like, most of the time, if you're in the job hunting space, depending on your type of work, so if we remove things like engineering and medical and some of the real technical trades where you need to have formal qualifications because it's risk-based, for most people in the workforce, you don't need the bit of paper, but you need to be able to describe your skills. That's the real question you're asking, is what language do I use to describe what I did in the military? So
selling yourself.
Yeah, it's selling yourself in the right way. So I can tell you what I did as an infantry officer and how good all those skills are, but the industry won't understand that. You don't know how to do that because you don't know the language to use. And that's where the mentor comes in. And this is what I find flabbergasting is that, right now, Jazz, we have 700 odd mentors on our program and we can't get them. We can't get the veterans and the mentors to engage.
Yeah, they're not reaching out. They're not taking this industry experience and really utilizing it.
Yeah, but I think maybe it's partly they don't realise, point one, that you need to have it, and I guess that's why we're talking about it. But second of all is you don't know what to ask that mentor. So one of the things you can ask that mentor is go, hey, I'm starting to look for work in this industry. This is what I did in the military. You know that because you were in the military. How do I describe that in job interviews or coffee meetings or, those sorts of networking activities? How do I describe to people that I'm an ultimate problem solver? Yeah, I haven't worked in agile project management before, but I've delivered these 5 different things over here, which was basically project management. So how do I describe that? They're the things you need to work with mentors on.
Yeah. It's very true, and it's not even the veterans that we have on the platform as mentors. We have people that have been 50 years, 20 years, 30 years experience in the civvy world that can offer that advice as well.
Absolutely.
And, you speak to them, like even myself, I'm not military, and when I speak with people, if they start speaking about stuff I don't know, I'll tell them because that's what exactly HR managers are looking for too. They're looking for that language.
Yeah, and I think further to both points is that, the civvy world doesn't care what rank you were. It doesn't know whether a corporal was higher than a colonel or vice versa. And they don't mind. They don't care. They don't want to know. And I think that the skill set, as you're saying, for the guys transitioning, is the transferability, and it's hard. It's hard when you're in to know what that is. And that's when you do need to have a sit down with someone and have a chat. I mean, it's all well and good getting people who are signallers into cyber, but have they got other skills that actually they probably want to utilise more and go a different path? Is one of the reasons they're leaving is they don't want to be in the signals world anymore. They want to try something else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And one of the big transferable skills, as I keep saying, is this leadership thing. But it's really hard to make a civvy understand the sort of leadership you bring, because they already have a mindset that you're a stereotype.
It's a different world. It's a completely different world to.
Well, they've seen a few movies and they think, oh well, it's all dictatorial, autocratic, blah blah blah. In my 18 years, I got one order. Now, bearing in mind, I started as what you'd know as a private. I started as a Marine, and 18 years later, I popped out the other end as a major. So I've done quite a spectrum, and I had one order. And that order was to make a cup of coffee. And I said, no. John Fitzsimmons, we were in Belfast, and he said, make us a cup of coffee. I went, no, I'm not doing that. He said, what? I said, well, you're setting me up for failure. I don't drink tea and coffee, so I'm going to make a bad one. And then you're going to, And
everyone's having a bad day, aren't they?
Yeah. So it is that transferability. It's knowing when you say you're a leader, what that actually means. And painting the right picture in the civvy's mind that this is not about autocratic stuff. I mean, like I said, when I was in command, it would be get your team around you and say, okay, they have got this idea to do this. What do you think? And you get all the ideas together, and you go, okay, I have a bit of that, bit of that, bit of that, and you collaborate and you come up with a plan, your course of action, and come back to your point, then you're the project manager ostensibly, the leader of the gang, and off you go and you execute on that plan. And I think getting the civvies to understand that's how you do it. It's that collaboration, and it's genuine leadership from a high EQ, emotional intelligence perspective, where you're looking out for each other. I mean, that was one of the things that both our militaries do, is you're looking out for the guy to the left and right of you. So when you're going into battle, you're going, well, I've already got at least 3 pairs of eyes that are looking out for me. So happy days. That mentality isn't the same in the civvy world, and that's why when we both left, we're looking for something that's pretty similar, because you like that brotherhood, you like that security, you like working for each other. So you've got to find your tribe.
Yeah. We're just talking about, I feel, some challenges that you're going to face in transition. It was one of the points I wanted to go over today, is what challenges were overcome from you guys. So if you could go back to that time of transition, what were the main challenges you guys faced? Was there decisions of, no, I'm going to probably stay in just because you were so unsure? We touched on the mental side of things, but what actual challenges did you guys face? Did you go through a low point and feel like you had to be resilient with your mindset? Was there anything in particular that stands out for you guys?
Yeah, 9 years. That stands out. Like I said, it was finding my way to do the stuff that I believed I could do as soon as I left.
Yeah.
And the challenges that I always face is I'm coming to somebody else's nation, playing by their rules, in the civvy world. So there are 3 new things there for me, with no security of friends, comrades or anything like that around me. And I had to make it up as I went along. But as I said, I think the challenge that I had was that I had to prove myself.
Yep.
I had to do all those qualifications again, earn my stripes again. And it was a huge challenge, because I'd left at a reasonably, high rank. And I had this headspace of going, well, don't you know who I am, kind of thing. Yeah. No, they don't, and they don't care, So that was a challenge to overcome, which sounds a little bit up yourself. But I think when you've been in that sort of rank and that position for as long as I had, it is really quite unsettling when all of a sudden you no longer have hundreds of people that are under your charge.
Did it take you a little bit to realise that as well?
It didn't. I mean, I knew what I was getting into in terms of, right, it's going to be completely different. I just didn't recognise just how different it was going to be. And that, I think, was the big aha moment for me. And it took me some time. It took me probably longer than, Australian guys and girls leaving would take, because, they brought up here, they understand the system. I had no idea. Because I joined really, I was 18 when I joined, so I'd just done education and then that. I hadn't worked. So, as soon as I left, I was here. I was going, right, hang on, different rules.
Yeah, I think, I couldn't agree more, right? So one of the things, I don't know if I found it challenging, but I could see how people would find it challenging. You think about what I left, similar to Scotty. I jumped out of a really good job in Melbourne, corporate, running quite a large team for Defence Force recruiting. And in a month later, I'm thrown on my Fluor Orange to go work with 8 guys on the ground as an arborist company. So you go from being sort of, let's say, an expert in your field to not knowing anything.
Yeah.
But at the same age as all the other people that are there, and they've been doing that for the last 15 and 20 years.
Right, that would be.
So you know all this stuff, and even when you're doing day-to-day tasks, you probably know that you might be able to do it better, or you've got a better idea as to how to do it, but that's not your place, because you're the new guy.
You're the new guy.
So what's challenging for people is, can you be humble enough to just do the work and learn and show them over time and build credibility through your action, as opposed to bringing all of this, I don't even know the right word to describe it, all of this stuff from the past that you think is really important, like you said, and they don't really value that. They don't know that. They don't have any context about that. So I think, you've got to be comfortable that you might be going back to square one in some cases. Not all jobs. Some jobs you'll seamlessly transfer across and, you'll jump in to be a consultant or an engineer, and that's what you've been doing for the last 10 years in the military. It's a different story. But you think about if you were going to transition into something completely different, how you would handle it, and that will prepare you for things that aren't so different.
And I think an expansion of that, from my side anyway, is around the whole PTSD thing. There are many of us that have it, and there are different forms of it. And I think one of the forms, certainly my side anyway, was just trying to understand how I would fit in. You hear stories of people who have had a reasonable experience in the military, been there for a few years, had some leadership behind them, got some rank or whatever, and then they leave and they go, now what? And they end up doing that for so long that they just need a job to get some money, and they go and become a lorry driver. And you go, wow, how demoralising is that? And I think that's where people start looking internally to go, oh, what the hell's going on? What's happening with me? Why am I here? Why am I not, doing a job where I can utilise the skills and experience that I've had in the past, and I'm here sat driving a lorry? That's why I'm really keen to make sure that people are looked out for. WithYouWithMe does a really good job to get people into meaningful work, and at least give them at least an exposure to what sort of work is out there. And there are other organisations out there like Red 6 that deal with just the PTSD side of things, and how to deal with that mental resiliency. And just know where you are in your headspace, and has a network of people like WithYouWithMe that are looking out for each other, that peer support network.
Yeah, I think to come back to your question as well, Jazz, so I didn't spend 9 years, but I probably spent 18 months trying to make the decision to leave. So, let's use a different analogy. You're a semi-professional athlete, and you've had that taken away from you because of injury. Imagine if you're at the top of your game as a semi-professional athlete, and then one day you turn around, you're like, going to go try something else.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't actually make sense because everything's running really well. You've got all these opportunities, your life's in order, you're on a good paycheck, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden you're like, but something's not right, and I want to do something else for whatever reason. It takes time to make that decision. So what I would say to people is spend time doing it, but you've got to socialize your ideas. You've got to actually just go and tell people, hey, I'm thinking about getting out. I'm going to do this thing. Like, hey, I'm going to be an arborist, and watch people, because some people are like, what do you mean? Or they'll be like, hey, that sounds really exciting. You've got to actually just talk about it and socialize it to become comfortable with it.
Do you think the barrier there is fear of failure? Like, to me, my mind, when you said that, went straight to, I don't want to lose this amazing title I have, and I'm fearful of a failure.
100%.
Is that what you're like? Is that what you were thinking?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not for a number of reasons, right? Because you've got all the people around you that know you've been doing really well and supportive, and then there's this fear of like, well, am I turning my back on you? Am I turning my back on the support that I wanted to give to the country?
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing this forever.
And people are dependent on you and relying on you for certain things.
So it took one particular person in the military, a senior officer, to sit me down and say, hey, it's okay. You've already given a lot of service. If you want to come back later, you'll come back and you'll be great. Wherever you go, you'll be great. But it took someone like that to understand from both sides and go, hey, it's okay. Someone in the right position who I was surprised would say that to me. I thought they'd be trying to retain me, but to say, hey, no, it's fine. They said, don't get caught up on loyalty. You've been loyal for the last 13 years, and we respect that. Don't get caught up on loyalty. Go and be brilliant for Australia somewhere else.
Was it after that advice that you were like, okay?
100%. Straight after that advice, I was like, yep, we're on. What are the steps for me to go?
And exactly the same point came to me, and it was actually by an American army officer when I was leaving, and he said, just be wary of misplaced loyalty.
Yeah.
Because you get so hooked up into the whole game that you've been playing and looking out for each other, looking out for the country, blah blah blah, that you go, oh, I must keep working really really hard for them. Well, as soon as your back's turned, they're going to point fingers your way, going, oh, it was his fault anyway, or something similar. So don't I did, my 18 years, and I think, well, I've probably served the country well enough. Now it's about looking after myself. And I think that, looking back was probably sage advice about how to see the transition. It's no longer about the brotherhood, it's about you. And that's Civistry. It's about you. You've got to look out for yourself. You might be lucky and find a company like you guys are in, where you actually look out for each other and mentor each other and trying to ensure that people excel. Give you an opportunity to be a podcaster girl or whatever it is. But it's about looking out for each other, and it's hard to find those sorts of families in inverted commas that you can find out there and become part of. But it goes back to what we were saying, is that if you're going to leave knowing that you're not going to find that.
All right, great. Thanks, guys. So, Scott, you're a mentor on our platform, so you're happy to have a chat with some people if they want to reach out with some questions. Definitely. Jump on your LinkedIn, send you a message.
Please
Same with you, Tom. You're always open to some questions. And
always.
It's only going to help our business, right? How we make it better for everyone.
Yeah, always happy to help.
By veteran, for veteran.
That's it, yeah.
All right, thanks, guys, for joining me, and hopefully we get some good feedback from it.
Good job, Jazz.
Thank you.